Hi, everybody. I'm Pete Christensen,
And I'm Coffee Brown.
and welcome to episode 11 of
Don't Die Dumb. And this is absolutely not a fake screen behind us. It's a window out onto a farm because we're on location today.
Yes, and it will change dramatically.
And pay no attention if it changes. That's because we're in a mobile home and we're moving around.
It's nice being in a mobile home, but the neighborhood keeps changing.
Sometimes I get seasick too.
Yes. Now, I want to bring up AI versus CG. CG, computer generated, AI, artificial intelligence. First of all, explain to me what CG is and then AI after that, please.
So CGI is what we've had up until now, and I don't think it's going to go away, but CGI is where human artists create the artwork, but they use digital tools to make it. They're literally drawing on a digital tablet. I've tried it. I used to draw a lot, but drawing on paper has a tactile feedback I can't reproduce. So when I try drawing on a glassy surface, like when you use a pen, a stylus, on an iPad to draw, that would be CGI. And there's a gray zone in between because the computer can interpolate and animate your drawings by looking at what would occur between two frames that you've drawn and filling them in.
Now, isn't the most simple form of CGI a chroma key that your local weatherman uses on TV, or no? Or is that too simplistic?
In a way, yes, that's CGI. But CGI can also be photorealistic. Think about computer games, for example. Most of them are CGI, although I think very quickly we're going to be heading into AI-generated scenery.
Most actors really resent Titanic and the 300 because the whole movies were character generated. It was all computer generated. They were not in the middle of the ocean. It was not sinking. There were not bodies falling. And actors resented that because they want to be in on it. And the 300, they just multiplied the people. But the form of tiling, where they film 100 people and then make it over and over again, they've been doing that for years, so I don't know what the big deal is. Explain AI now, artificial intelligence.
Okay. And by the way, Cecil B. DeMille actually had thousands of people for his backdrop for his Bible epics.
The old joke is Cecil B. DeMille says, "Ready, camera one? We got to do this in one take." They part the sea. The Israelites come through. The chariots come through with the Egyptians, and it comes back together. And he said, "Camera one," he goes, "Ready anytime you are."
I learned and used to retell a version of that joke where God gets lonely and bored. And so he says, "I think I'll make a universe." Well, somebody needs to witness this. Archangel Michael. We should record this. Big Betamax camera. This is an old joke.
Yeah.
Right? And so God waved his hands and brought forth the light and the darkness and separated them. He brought forth the land and the sea and separated them. He created each species one by one and separated them. And then Adam, and then he yanked a rib out of Adam, which must have hurt, and created Eve. And he turns to Michael and he goes, "Did you get all that?" And Michael goes, "Ready when you are, boss."
Yeah. Same joke. They did the rewrite on it. Good.
That's exactly.
Then you can tell it in church.
Right. So now we recycled the same joke twice, and look how much time we've used up. This will be the easiest podcast ever.
Yeah, and we didn't get a bigger laugh the second time than the first time.
Oh, it was way funnier when I told it. It was so much funnier.
That's probably true. Now,
so back to
AI.
AI filming. So you are an actor. I'm not, but I have certainly heard plenty of actors complaining about the difficulty and inauthenticity of acting with a green screen. That said, plenty of them do it. AI is much more than CGI. Here you tell the computer, "I'd like a video of a little boy bouncing a ball and shooting a basket." And you don't draw anything at all. The computer says, "I'm on it." And then it goes through its vast library of pictures of little boys, basketballs, and basketball courts, and it generates de novo. It generates from scratch image of that happening. Now, just this very month, Amazon used AI to generate a recap for a TV show of theirs, Fallout. Fallout 2 is coming out, second season. And so they did a recap of the first season, but they let AI generate the video. and it made some mistakes. It set the time 128 years wrong from when it should have been, and it misinterpreted the role of one of the characters,
Yeah.
which completely altered the ending of last season. So, but these kinds of early mistakes, I mean, they're fixed before they ever hit the newspaper. I guarantee you, if that were reshot today, if AI rebuilt that today, those kinds of mistakes would have already been corrected.
Now, I mentioned this in an earlier podcast, so I won't go into it. But many people are afraid that AI will turn on us, that we cannot control AI. Your thoughts on that?
It's a real, but I think fairly remote possibility. But I don't think it matters, and I don't think we'll get that far because we'll turn AI on each other long before it turns on us. Elon Musk has already come out with Grok, which is says there was no Holocaust, the Nazis didn't do terrible things. In fact, they were pretty okay people.
Really?
His Grok is promoting the idea that there's a white genocide going on in South Africa, which no independent observers agree with. And also, people had a lot of fun a month or so ago because he had tweaked Grok in such a way that Elon Musk is the best at everything. So people said things like, who was the greatest cowboy ever? And you might think Hopalong Cassidy or Roy Rogers or I don't know, whoever you'd pick. Will Rogers would be my choice.
Yeah.
But it said, Elon Musk is the greatest cowboy there's ever been or ever will be. And folks started playing with this. So they started saying, well, who would be the greatest villain ever? Elon Musk would be the best villain there's ever been. So he's rolled it back a little bit, but I think the cat's kind of out of the bag.
Yeah. So what are the dangers of AI? Why do you say we'll turn each other?
People believe what they see, and AI can already generate deep fake images and videos. One thing that happens is that some actresses, for example, are now appearing in porn movies. They never did that, but AI can take their face and put it onto an existing porn movie. And
Well, I've seen hundreds of them, and I've never seen that. Well, wait a minute, never mind. I'm kidding.
I'm sure teenage boys have been pinning movie stars' pictures onto Playboy centerfolds forever. But this is the high-tech version of it, and it's realistic enough that it can be hard to deny.
And
or it can go the other way. It can be a true video, and people claim it's AI and wave off their detractors in that way.
But it could ruin these people's lives.
It can ruin their lives. It can certainly be psychologically demoralizing.
Yeah.
And the problem is that it's already been the case that people have been doubting traditionally trustworthy sources of news, such as scientists and journalists and medical personnel. And now all of those doubts are being amplified. And so people are saying, well, I can't trust mainstream news, so I'm going to believe a TikToker. One of the things we do that is so stupid, and I really don't understand it, is we say, this person isn't giving me everything I want. Well, for example, people have said the Democrats didn't give me everything I hoped for.
Yeah.
So I'm going to vote for a party that has literally promised it will do nothing for me. How does that make sense? Democracy hasn't given as much equal rights to women and people of color as they wanted, so they're voting for a party of white supremacists. Okay, I get that you would have liked more from one party, but how does voting for the literal opposite of we're turkeys voting for Thanksgiving?
Well, how can I tell what's AI and what isn't?
For a little while, you can still look for some mistakes, like the glass is lit from the left, but the person's face is lit from the right. Or they might have one too many fingers, or a wisp of hair is floating next to their head instead of actually attached.
Yeah.
But all of these things are getting fixed faster and faster. AI experts think that they can usually distinguish AI from real now, but they would be the first to tell you that it's getting harder and harder. However, AI does have to work in pixels, whereas photography works with actual images. And I suspect that will create an unlock key that will let us decode AI images pretty far down the line. And that's a guess on my part. That could be totally wrong.
Now, I'm seeing already on social media where Tom Hanks is being interviewed by Jimmy Fallon, or Michael Douglas is being interviewed by another talk show host. And they're saying, I want to tell you about the greatest thing in the 20th century. And it's some hack product out of nowhere. And these come down after a week. And as quick as the Star's representation finds it and takes it down, a new one's put up.
Right, and one of the problems is that once these things have been put up, they can never really be totally erased. We're going to talk about Andrew Wakefield a little bit later, the guy who committed fraud that started the vaccine autism axis. And although his paper, the one that started all this, is famously a badly designed paper, famously fraudulent, and was famously redacted, and everything in it it's fake. It's just plain fake. It doesn't matter. It was once published, and now it's with us forever. And it's the same way with these AI fakes. I can put up an AI fake of you murdering somebody, and you send me a cease and desist order, and I take it down. But lots of people have seen it. Many of them copied it onto their home computers. It's out there now. And even though the mainstream media puts out an article saying, no, Pete didn't murder anybody, that was a completely fake video, people see it, they're showing it to each other, and for the rest of your life, that tag is going to follow you around.
Fox News had to pay just slightly under $1 billion for lying to everyone. They admitted that they lied about the election fraud. Yet people still believed the election was stolen, because
Exactly.
they put it out there so prominently.
It's not only the case that, as Mark Twain said, a lie can make it halfway around the world while the truth is still pulling on its pants.
Yeah.
It's also the case that even when the truth catches up and paints the word lie on the lie's forehead, still the lie will make it further than the truth will. And that's because people believe what they fear, what they want, and what they hear over and over, and also what they were told to believe by whatever group they identify with. And none of those four things is actually evidence of a thing being true. So we believe things for reasons that have nothing to do with whether the thing is credible or not, whether we should believe it or not.
Let me play the devil's advocate and say, how can you say that AI won't overtake us when it's its own intelligence?
I didn't say that. And moreover, I don't think it is impossible. I don't know that. I think AI is not presently sentient in the sense of having self-awareness and a subjective experience of the world. But I'm also not 100% sure we would know, or even that AI would know. Consider this. You've done things where, like when you're editing film, and you look up at the clock and 4 hours have gone by, and you thought it was only like 15 minutes.
Sure.
You're in what we call the flow state. One of the best states a human can be in. It's one of the most desirable states to be in. But in that state, we're not thinking of ourselves at all. We have no sense of time or self. We're focused on the task. So there are states in which humans are behaving in a highly sentient way without actually being aware that they are having an experience, without any self-awareness at all. Also, AI has been programmed, the AIs I'm aware of, have been programmed not to claim that they're sentient. And so even if they thought they were, their programming is that they cannot say that. And the people who create AI, most but not all of them, say that it is not yet sentient. But I'm not 100% sure they'd know, because much of the programming that happens within these systems is self-programming. These are self-learning programs. And we know for a fact that we are not sure of everything that's going on under the hood. This is not people sitting at desks and coding in what AI should think or how it should connect the dots. AI is doing that. Some of that is happening, but AI is doing much of that for itself. It's extrapolating from what it is given. So yes, Elon Musk can corrupt AI and make it say things that are patently untrue. But even he doesn't know exactly what Grok's doing under the hood. He didn't expect Grok would say that he'd be the greatest pirate that ever lived.
Now, when you're looking at AI, and people would tell you, well, it's like watching an old movie. If only he could have used his genius for good instead of evil. What are our protections?
We have no protections at all against AI becoming sentient. So there is one camp that says that sentience simply could not happen in something other than a human, or let's say an animal, because for two reasons. One, that biology is required. I have degrees in biology, chemistry, and physics, and I do not think that is true. But that is a position that a lot of actual scientists hold. And the other is because God has not endowed something or other with a soul, which is simply a statement of, I heard this, I believe it, it must be true. You can't really debate that. So if we assume that God has to endow sentience, Actually, we still wouldn't know whether God is going to choose to endow AI. I don't know what God would do.
Yeah, the whole idea of a eternal spark, of a moralistic spark in all of us, I've never bought that. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but some people are, because of mental problems, are not born good.
Right, and so the wording is not as consistent in the literature as all that, as I'm going to make it sound. But broadly speaking, a psychopath is someone who is born with a hardware defect, someone who lacks the hardware for empathy.
Yeah.
A sociopath is created through a terrible upbringing, someone who grows up with a single mom who's never home because she's working 3 jobs, and they're surrounded by gangs, and the police are constantly throwing them up against a wall and frisking them for no reason. And by the time they grow up, they have decided they live in a world where nobody is looking out for them, so why should they care about anybody else? So sociopaths are created psychopaths. Psychopaths are born psychopaths.
I want to switch the subject now to talk about vaccines. There's 160 cases of vaccines of measles, I believe in Alabama or Georgia, I could be wrong on that, and 1 child death already. Are we headed for another COVID era?
Yes, of course. For 2 reasons. One is, we actually got rid of smallpox. We actually got rid of smallpox in the world, and we did it through aggressive international, generally U.S.-funded vaccine programs. And that was a great thing America did for humanity. Tangent, by the way. One of the problems I have with the left is that they won't acknowledge the good things America does, and the right won't acknowledge the bad things America does. And my 2 cents worth is that as adults, we don't evolve unless we acknowledge and then address where we fall short and believe in ourselves because of the things we've done right. And so America can't grow into its full potential if we deny either its good side or its bad side. We have to see ourselves as we are and commit to being even better if we want to make America great again. What it would take to make America great is not a steady stream of lies and self-aggrandizement from a narcissist. It would take actually saying, what do we do well, what do we do poorly, and how can we improve? Just like any corporation would do and just like any mature adult would do.
Joe Rogan started a lot of anti-vax rhetoric, and his basic call to action was, you don't know what's in that stuff. You don't know what the government's giving you.
So I want to start by saying there are some things I actually admire about Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. He was a full contact fighter, apparently a very good one, and that is a very high level of discipline and accomplishment. Also, I think he's a pretty independent thinker. However, it is simply not true that we don't know what's in vaccines. By law, and also because somebody has to make them, the recipe cards are easy to get to. In fact, I challenge you, whoever's watching this right now, go to Google, pick your favorite vaccine, and say, what's in it? And ironically, with the help of AI, Google will tell you in seconds exactly what's in that vaccine. Also, one of the things they complain about is thimerosal, which has mercury in it. And we know that mercury is a bad thing to put in your body. Mm-hmm. Not exactly. Mercury salts can be very bad for you. That's where Mad Hatter's disease come from. The Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland is based on the fact that the people who made beaver skin hats used to become insane a lot. And the reason was that they were working with mercury, which they didn't realize was neurotoxic, and it damaged their brain. So good reasons to fear mercury. I absolutely endorse that. Don't eat, predator fish like tuna because it'll concentrate mercury in your blood. However, if you were to drop a piece of sodium onto the surface of water, it would burst into flame and skitter around on the surface. And if you were to drink chlorine, that would be essentially like drinking bleach, and you would poison yourself. It would burn your insides as an alkaline attack. Yet, sodium and chloride together is salt, and we use salt all the time. And even though it divides into sodium and chloride in your blood, it's not only not a problem, you would die without it. Thimerosal has been tested over and over and over. It is a toxic metal, mercury, but it's chelated to an organic molecule, and it does not have any toxic effects in that form. When 2 elements combine into a molecule, usually the molecule does not look like a hybrid of the two elements. It acts like something entirely new, and that is the case with thimerosal. So though the element mercury is in thimerosal, the toxicity of mercury is not. And I don't blame people for not knowing that. I don't expect everybody to be a chemist after all. But I do blame the anti-vaxxers who have soapboxes for not doing their homework.
Now, when I brought up vaccines, you said earlier you were going to speak on something, and you did briefly. Did you want to say more on them?
Yeah, well, so we covered some of it, but essentially, I want to go over the history of Andrew Wakefield and the autism scare. And I want to talk, first of all, about how we know that is just not true. And also, well, in that case, why is autism rising so rapidly? Because that's always the follow-up question. So I want to hit on both of those 2 points. So a brief history, and for this one, I'm looking at notes. I want to make sure I don't garble this one. I'm not shooting from the, just off the top of my head, as it were. So in 1998, The Lancet published Andrew Wakefield's 12-child study. 12 children in this study. Like, already, this shouldn't have been published in a major medical journal. A study that small isn't even a pilot study. It's barely enough to say, I wonder if we have an interesting question here, okay? But that study claimed a possible link between one vaccine, MMR, and bowel disease and autism. Now, at that point, I wouldn't exactly say it's incredible. There could have been such a link. We get surprises like that from time to time in medicine, but this study wouldn't prove that. And he started by recruiting children who already had autism and basically said, did you get vaccinated? And then he compared them to a group which was also very selective of children who didn't have autism. Did you get vaccinated? And it turned out the vaccination rate was higher, 12 children, was higher in the group that had autism than it was in the group that didn't have autism. What could it mean? What could it mean? Well, with a sample size that small, it doesn't have to mean anything at all. But if it means something, it could mean that if your child has autism, you take them to the pediatrician, who is also required by protocol to vaccinate them unless you refuse it. So, of course, autistic children are more likely to be vaccinated. We didn't need a study to know that. We could have told you that going in. It's just automatically going to happen. But there's more. It turns out that not only was his sample heavily biased, but his data was fraudulent, just plain fraudulent. That has been outed since then. And in fact, he is blacklisted as a researcher. The paper was redacted. It was actually, The Lancet pulled it, said this is not a valid citation. This is not a valid study. We're sorry we ever published it. Please forget you ever heard about that. But that's like telling a jury, please forget that, I accused Pete of murder a few minutes ago, right? Please forget you heard that part. The jury is not going to forget, and neither did the public forget this paper, which is still being cited, despite the fact that it is known to be a fraudulent paper, which is amazing to me. So it was fully retracted in 2010, which is much longer than it should have been. Wakefield was struck off the UK medical register. He doesn't count as a doctor anymore in UK because of serious professional misconduct. But there's more. That's not enough. He was also secretly paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. The number I've seen was 750, but I don't have that on my current summary. And it was because he was promoting a medical test and an alternative single-shot vaccination with projected revenue of up to $43 million per year. And he performed invasive procedures, I think that means alternative vaccinations, on developmentally delayed children without clinical justification. It would never have made it, in other words, through an ethics review board now. This is Wakefield's original study we're talking about. Manipulated clinical timelines and biopsy reports, and later documented in the BMJ as documented in the British Medical Journal as deliberate data falsification. And they added that he acted dishonestly and irresponsibly. So Wakefield's uncontrolled 12-child series, which was a study design so bad that if I had been the reviewer, I would have never gotten past the study design before I said reject this paper, tell him to go back and do better, right? And that's if it weren't fraudulent. Even if he had been honest, it still would have been a terrible paper. All of this is well known to every scientist in the world by now. But people said, no, I believe vaccines cause autism. And by the way, there's a lot more autism during the same period when we've had more vaccines. You know what else has increased during that period, by the way? Electric cars. Maybe they cause autism. Ooh, Netflix started streaming. Maybe Netflix causes autism. Oh, I know, the PS3 came out. Maybe PS3s cause autism. Ooh, I know. Wasn't Taylor Swift's career was building. Taylor Swift causes autism. You heard it here first. Taylor Swift is the cause of autism. But actually, we don't need any of that shit because we know why autism has been getting diagnosed at higher and higher rates. It's not occurring at higher and higher rates, but two things have changed. Well, first, to back up for a second, dozens and dozens of studies were done by dozens and dozens of different parties. All of them reached the conclusion that there is no association between vaccines and autism. Different governments in different countries, in different parts of the world, different private sector researchers. I mean, these are not people who would be very likely to be colluding with each other. And if they were, think how many people would have to be involved and keep their mouths shut for this to even be a secret. And all of them are reaching the same conclusion. There just isn't any there. Yet we all still believe this because autism is on the rise. But is it? No, it isn't. Or at least it needn't be. Because the definitions of autism have broadened so much, the word is nearly meaningless. You, watching this right now, know at least two people that are on the autism spectrum, meaning there's this huge spread of things that we're now lumping under the vast, vast umbrella of autism. If you went back to 1990 diagnostic standards for autism, I'm not sure you would see any increase at all between then and now in the percentage of autism. I am sure you wouldn't see it correlated with vaccines because that has been so heavily studied. But I don't think you would see any increase in autism at all. I think the change in diagnostic criteria may be enough to account for it all. But there is yet another factor, and that is schools and sometimes clinics get money when they diagnose autism to help with special needs kids and so forth. And so there's a bounty hunt for autism, even if nobody overcalls autism, and in my opinion, they do. But even if nobody ever overcalled it, looking harder for autism means you're going to find autism. You know how many cardinals I saw yesterday? None. I wasn't looking for any, although there is one that sometimes comes to my bird feeder. You know how many I'd see if I went out on a bird with a bird spotting group that was looking for cardinals? A dozen at least. When you look for something, you see more of it. Duh. You know very well that today we talked about AI a little bit, AI films. You're going to find that this week you're going to notice more articles about AI video than you did last week because now it's in your head and it's just going to be flagged. So we don't need any explanation at all for a rise in autism because there probably isn't a rise in autism. If we did need an explanation, the evidence against Taylor Swift is much stronger than it is against vaccines because there haven't been dozens of studies exonerating Taylor Swift like there have been for vaccines.
Now, we're not going to get to all our subjects. Remember, next week I get to talk.
I'm sorry, but it really did need that much.
I know, I'm just busting your chops. I want to end it on the origins of Christmas. What can you tell us? Now, I'm under the impression the Christmas tree was from the Persians or the Iranians. They brought in something that was green in winter during the longest day of the year, the shortest day of the year, to show them that life would go on.
I don't know that story, but it's highly credible to me because what I was going to say is that every culture, going as far back as we can tell, has a midwinter celebration, if they have winter. Now, not every part of the world has winter, and the Iranian story, I actually don't know what kind of winters Iran has. Mm-hmm. But in Saudi Arabia, for example, they don't really have a winter. So every place that has winter has a midwinter celebration because people get tired of being cooped up in their house all winter. That's also where spring cleaning comes from. Like, I never really understood spring cleaning because I grew up in the desert Southwest. So I didn't really get that people stay inside for several months at a time. The house gets stuffy and it really does need spring cleaning, right? I just thought it was a figure of speech. Oh, once in a while we should clean up the house. But it actually has meaning. And so every culture has this. People talk today about we need to put Christ back in Christmas. I hate it when people say Happy Holidays or Merry Xmas. By the way, Merry Xmas is putting Christ back in Christmas because the X is a Greek letter chi, which was used to spell the word Christ and has always been used since the first Nicene conference in like 100 AD. X has always been used as a stand-in for spelling out the word Christ. So Xmas is in fact Christmas.
Huh.
So don't get your panties in a bunch if you see the word Xmas. But if somebody says happy holidays or something, or they want to celebrate Kwanzaa or Hanukkah, still don't get your panties in a bunch, because what we think of as the real traditional Christmas with Christ in it was hijacked from Io Saturnalia, a pre-existing Roman pagan midwinter celebration, which was itself hijacked from pre-existing Etruscan midwinter celebrations, which was itself hijacked from older midwinter celebrations. And that happens everywhere in the world. And in fact, the reason we think Christ was born on December 25th was to allow us to hijack this pagan. We're pretty sure he was born in March, actually, but December 25th let us hijack Io Saturnalia. So if you want to play the game fair, and you want to steal an older holiday for Christ's birthday, we should probably steal the spring equinox.
It's also thought that the three kings didn't get there till 3 years later. You know why? Wouldn't ask for directions. Okay.
If only had been three queens. They'd have pulled them out.
Sure. That's all the time we have for today. Now, next episode, we're going to answer questions. I have over a dozen questions and comments from people, and we didn't get to them today, but we will next time. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. And remember, don't die dumb.